Welcome to another episode of Live from the Wish House with me, Chris Spinner. If you're a regular, welcome back. And if it's your first time, I'm happy you're joining us. You know, my path profoundly changed when my son was diagnosed with autism. My marriage collapsed, and I had to develop my own Chrislosophies to navigate and thrive. I'm here to connect with you, to share and learn, and together we can create the life you love to live. So please subscribe, like, share, and most importantly, comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, feelings, and stories. My chat today is titled Reflections on a Life Well Lived. An unexpected topic for me. You see, I recently lost a friend, a very close friend, somebody I've known for 46 years. When I say that out loud, it doesn't even seem possible. When I was a kid, 46 years seemed like a lifetime. When I was a kid, if somebody was 46 years old, it felt like they were bordering elderly. This was just one of those things. He was in good health. He was golfing, playing music. He and his wife had just moved to a sunnier state to begin their chapter 3. And let me tell you, they were chapter 3ing like nobody's business. But when you hit my age, 67, you have more than likely been through a lot of loss. Uncles, aunts, maybe parents, older friends, and perhaps the occasional shocking passing of someone younger that no one can wrap their head around. As you know, I saw my mother to the door of the next life at 95. I knew that was imminent. But there were 2 phone calls before this one. The one from my father 27 years ago and the one from my brother 9 years ago that were unexpected and shocking. And now I've completed the trilogy with this phone call, which was equally as unexpected and shocking. And it reminded me of the old adage, you just never know. You just never know. You just never know the last time you talk to somebody, maybe the last time you talk to somebody. And it does remind you that life is fragile. You know, I like to say life is long. I adopted that phrase from a young woman named Maggie, who I had the distinct pleasure of interviewing on my radio shows years ago. I'd like to say I have a life as long mentality, that I'd rather think of life as being long rather than short. But listen, in the end, we don't know. But I choose to focus on the possibility and the positivity. I guess I like to take the more scenic route. And then I have to accept what I get while I'm on the journey. But I still love my possibility and my positivity. And in the case of my friend David, who left us too soon at 63 years, short amount of time by our standards, the life lived was incredible. The mindset was inspiring. I dare say that David did more in 63 years of life than most people dream about doing in 90 years of life. So maybe his life was long. It was just packed into shorter casing. But this was a hard one for me. You know, oftentimes we post on social media when someone that we know passes away outside of our family, a neighbor, an impactful community member, perhaps an elementary school teacher. I post those moments to acknowledge and to keep the person alive, so to speak, by saying their name. And when I post, I like to tell a little tale of how we've been connected, and I express sorrow to their family and friends. And oftentimes people will write in the comment section, "I'm sorry for your loss." And I always think, I'm acknowledging this person, but we weren't related, so I didn't expect to receive a condolence. I oftentimes don't even feel it's my place to receive the condolence. But this time, even though not blood related, I took every condolence and every expression of sympathy into my heart because it was personal. It is personal. I lost someone who I considered a brother, chosen family. I know David since college. We were both musicians and we made music together for the last 46 years. Of course, I knew many people in his life, obviously his wife and his family, but other friends, musicians that we had worked with along the way, other people that we were connected through, other projects that we were working on. So when the news started to spread, I became one of those point people, if you will, that others called to touch base with. And so for a week or so, it was like my own life was passing before my eyes. College friends that I hadn't heard from in such a long time were on the other end of my phone. Musicians, some of whom I hadn't spoken with in close to 30 years, were messaging or texting. And after the initial shock, our conversations were laden with memories. Hours and hours, days and days of conversations, of the consoling, of the being consoled, of the planning and shared ideas for how to honor, how to celebrate his life. It was a heavy, very heavy few weeks, but in the most beautiful of ways. And when you lose someone that close, when you actively participate in a celebration and honoring and acknowledging of a life that was so impactful to so many, you can't help but feel the nostalgia of what's been while you're meshing that with an assessment of who you are and a plan for how you go forward with the lessons learned. And in this case, the lessons learned from an extraordinary life. So, what are my initial takeaways? Because I think it's too early for me to embed the major takeaways into my journey going forward. But I definitely have some early thoughts, and lucky for you, you're going to get them. I met Dave in college. I was a senior. He was a freshman. We were two kids from similar backgrounds with music in their souls, trying to find a way without a damn clue. And let me tell you, I'm serious. We didn't have a damn clue. Everything was for the taking. We worked hard. We played hard. We were wild. It was the turn of the decades, the 70s into the 80s, and the glory days stories could fill a book. Many times we would look back and laugh uncontrollably and shake our heads in disbelief. We must have had somebody looking out for us. And when I look back at me and Dave and my friends in our younger days, at the surface, there's a lot of fun tales to tell. But as a seasoned woman of 67, looking a little deeper, I see us as a product of a generation of parents who did the best they could, but probably weren't the best emotional nurturers. So one of my first quick takeaways was focused on parenting. Parenting is such a serious job. It's not to be taken lightly. You're forming the psyche of another human being. You're shaping the citizenry of a community. So many people say parenting is a job that you don't get a break up. And you know what? I don't think you're supposed to get a break from it. I mean, of course, a physical break so you could rejuvenate yourself by having dinner with some friends, but I don't think you're supposed to have a vacation from parenting. I think you're supposed to understand what you're doing when you go in, when you take on this monumental job. It's the one job they don't give you any training for. It wouldn't hurt us to have some training. It wouldn't hurt us to hear from parents who've actually been successful at navigating it, so we can learn how to guide our children, to love our children, and to listen to our children, and to struggle along with our children, but to be present so that our children don't find themselves extra confused outside of the natural growth and finding of your identity and purpose. We need more pure, solid, loving, consistent relationships between parents and their children. More honesty, more willing to accept failure on everyone's part as we go along the way. Maybe we need to binge Parenthood on Hulu to find out how we do all those things. For us, once the crazy days of our 20s were lived through and the 80s were over, it was time for the inevitable growing up years. And I found myself moving forward with my friends and with my friend Dave. And once all of us started carving out a life and started building our futures, started creating philosophies that worked for us, the one thing that I marveled at in Dave's creative process was his willingness to see every opportunity as something to attempt, something to seize, a carpe diem mindset, if you will. Dave was the first of us to discover the art of not being fearful to succeed, as Marianne Williamson speaks of. And I'm going to repeat that again. Dave was the first to discover the art of not being fearful to succeed. And you're saying, I think you mean not being fearful of failure. No, I don't. Even though I'm repeating it again, I'm not going to dive into this great little nugget today. That's for another day. So here we go again. I marveled at Dave's discovery of not being fearful of succeeding, but to grasp the brass ring. I was about 15 years or so late to that party. Those discoveries of myself took longer. The comfortability of emotional abandon as it relates to creating yourself into the person you want to be didn't show up for me until I was in my 40s. And then I had some limitations, being a single mom to my autistic son. And I'm not saying that's an excuse. It's simply a fact. But once I discovered it, once I felt the call, once I gave myself permission to experience more than I was allowing myself to do, once I learned how not to be afraid of success, I began that journey in earnest to creating and living a full and authentic life. And I'm still at it. I'm still journeying. I don't think I've mastered it. I think I'm great at it, if I do say myself. But Dave, he had mastered it. I feel like he not only mastered it, he not only mastered how to create, he mastered meeting himself in the process, knowing himself and honoring himself. 3 things that I came to the party late to as well. David was a brilliant musician, a talented bass player who was never short of gigs. He worked on the production end of TV and comedy clubs and served his community through many volunteer efforts. He earned a double master's degrees and had a doctorate degree. He was a CFO, a dad, a husband, and a grandpa, a life learner and a life lover, a complete Renaissance man, and a man who dispelled quiet wisdom. And his wisdom came purely from his mindset of, like Nike, just do it. Just learn it. Don't overthink. See it, seize it, enjoy it. Here's some more initial takeaways. Exactly that. Just do it. Just learn it. Don't overthink it. See it, seize it, enjoy it. You know, there's a famous line in The Bronx Tale that Chaz Palminteri says. He says, nobody cares, but I say it with the best of intention. Stop worrying about what others think. Seize joy. Be you. Nobody cares. Love big. Be a person of support, of empowering others. Find a way to be secure in your own self. Find a way to understand that the garden is only beautiful because there are so many flowers. And you are one of them, not all of them. You're one of them. Play your part, get your water, find your sunshine, grow strong. Be kind, make music. Whenever possible, say yes. Say yes to you, say yes to others. Show up. Get into the habit of asking yourself, is this contributing to the life that I want to create? Don't sweat the small stuff. Keep learning. Share your knowledge. Speak your truth. Love your neighbor. Don't lose touch with the people who have been on your journey thus far. And remember to say, I love you. At Dave's memorial service, his wife arranged for all different people to speak about different facets of Dave's life. And one of his son-in-laws was sharing a story about often David would tell his daughters how much he loved them. Or they would be all sitting at the dinner table chatting, and one of his daughters was relaying a story, and he would stop her mid-sentence and tell her how beautiful she was. And the son-in-law said how wonderful it was to have a father, to observe a father who takes those moments daily and surrounds his children with love. And I was thinking back to my childhood when no one did that. I mean, we were told we were loved, but in my loud Italian family, we were lucky to just get through one meal all in one emotional piece. But I was thinking about that style of parenting. How did he learn that? Well, there's a popular meme that goes around social media, and it says, be who you would have needed when you were younger. And so in the hearing of that story, I was thinking that exact thing. Dave is being who we all would have wanted when we were younger. So think about that. Be that. Create that person. It took the passing of my incredible friend to stop me in my tracks and reassess what I'm doing, where I'm going, and how I want to continue. There'll be lots to think about and implement in the coming months and in the coming years. But today, I'm offering you what I'm working on, what I'm learning on, what I'm living on. I'm giving you some reflections on an incredible life so you can do the same. And perhaps that's the purpose of all our lives, that when it's over, we're still able to impact people, even people we never knew. I often say we don't see the full picture. We all see it through our own telescope. But if we could see the bigger picture of what the universe is all about and how we fit into that picture, it might actually give us a sense of solace in the things that we worry about daily. You know, a friend of mine responded to a little tribute post, one of many that I wrote on social media. Donna said, "May we all be blessed to have a friend like Dave, or be blessed to be a friend like Dave. And may we take pause to check in with ourselves to see if we were living our best lives for ourselves and for others." And I loved that sentence. Wise words from another good friend. And I say yes, yes, yes to all of that. So let's be about it. John C. Maxwell's famous quote is, "Change is inevitable. Growth is optional." Chris Spinner says, "I'll take that option." My friend David used to say, "No mayo." And that's a story for another day. See you next time here at the Wish House.